Hey, everybody, we're back for more baseball talk. We're talking fantasy aspects of rule changes, a little bit about the closer pool, and some intriguing early ADP thoughts. All coming up next. Happy Sunday evening, everybody. Welcome to the RotoWire Fantasy Baseball Podcast. We are sponsored by Fantrax, the most customizable free commissioner service in fantasy sports, and also by UnderDog Fantasy, home of the biggest best ball contest in the industry. I'm Scott Jenstad, joined as always on Sunday nights by Jeff Erickson. If you could please rate and review the podcast if you enjoy listening to us, that'd be fantastic. Jeff, it's February. We're talking baseball. How's everything?
Hey, we're talking baseball. It's good.
Yeah, it's a good thing, right?
Yeah, exactly.
We don't have to commiserate about championship game losses this week, so it's perfect.
Didn't happen. I don't know what you're talking about. Yeah. Basketball's not happening either. We won't talk about that either.
Yeah, although let's not go there today.
There was a fun trade. I'll say that. That was fun.
Yeah. So nobody wants to hear me talk about basketball, but is it amazing that the Nets owner pretty much said, "I'm going to trade Kyrie, but I refuse to trade him and the Lakers where he wants to go"?
Yeah.
Is that amazing? He actually report is that he would refuse to trade him there because he wanted to go there. I love the pettiness.
Yeah, I do too. The NBA never fails.
Yeah,
never fails.
It's amazing.
There's so many different ways. And yeah, you live in LA, I live in LA, and neither of us are fans of the Lakers, and that makes it even better.
Yeah, it's they would have been really tough if he had gotten there. So, but anyway, I'll save the basketball talk for Twitter or something. But let's jump into baseball. I got some stuff I want to talk to you about. I know you wrote an article about the 2023 rule changes that we have and kind of how it affects the fantasy impact, fantasy landscape here. You wrote the article. It was I think it was last week, January 30th. I'm looking at it here. Did you have any major takeaways from that? Before we get into each of the rules are, I mean, we have the bases, we have the throwovers, and the pitch clock. We got a new ball. Did you come out with anything that you're really dramatically altering your projections or changing your draft strategy?
Not dramatically. At first I was against all of them.
Okay.
I'm warming up to some of the notions here. I do think, the Clay Link, Joe Sheehan approach of it will have a smaller impact than we might think is probably the likely outcome for a couple of reasons. One, just unintended consequences, and two, teams and players make adjustments. You're not allowed to shift dramatically as we did in the past. There are shift restrictions, but they'll figure something out. Maybe they'll have a guy sprint as soon as the guy releases a pitch or something like that. They'll be, we won't see Manny Machado in right field anymore. So, okay, that's fine. But I think like the pitch clock, for instance, I'm pretty much anti-pitch clock because I want to, from the standpoint that I don't mind a long day at the ballpark. I like baseball. I want more of it. I can't stand when rights holders complain about the length of games here's another commercial break. We're going to insert this commercial during the broadcast too. That's my new favorite one there. Is like there's like a 15-second, 10-second commercial during the live broadcast. Not when they go to commercial break. Just stop already. They're just commercializing the heck out of everything. So it falls on deaf ears to me when they complain about the pace of play, when they do that sort of stuff, and they monetize on the other hand. That said, I'm warming up a little bit to the pitch clock because I do think it's going to be a little bit more interesting in terms of what that does to pitchers. In terms of they can't, sometimes holding a runner is hold the ball. Okay, I'll do this lazy slop toss over to first base. That's gone, by the way. They're only allowed 2 free pickoff moves, and then the third one, you either have to get them or it's a balk. So you're going to see a lot of best moves right away from these pitchers.
Yep.
Which means more pickoffs, means more balks.
Now, is that 2 moves within the same at bat? Is that 2 moves with the guys the same? Like if the guy's still second, do your moves reset? I don't even know.
That I don't know. I think I always thought it was per plate appearance, but it's probably per base or something.
I would think so, right? Because if you steal second, you got to you can't not have pitch moves to do there. But do you see stolen bases going up a lot? Obviously, the bigger bases in the minor leagues, they test this. It went up a pretty significant percentage in the minor leagues. I don't think we'll see anywhere near that in the majors. But how do you feel about it in terms of, do you think stolen bases are going way up, a little bit up, not up at all? And then B, how do you change? Does that change how you draft at all?
I think the pickoff rule is more impactful than the size of the base. I think the size of the base helps because you can stay on the bag longer, easier to stay on the bag, more to reach for, slightly shorter path to get there.
Yeah.
But I think the bigger factor, and I know everything is, granular, it's optimized down to the hundredths of an inch, but at the same, so it will matter a little bit, but I really think the pickoff rule is big. I think it is going to raise up stolen bases. But I think it might, I don't think it'll be a lifts all boats sort of thing, but it will be fair. I mean, the guys that are the best at stealing bases, the teams that are best at stealing bases are going to definitely benefit more.
Do you have certain, you say not going to lift all boats. Do you have certain boats that you think are going to be more impacted? When I looked at it, I kind of thought like if you're Alderbota Mondesi, like you're probably running crazy anyway.
Right.
So for me, it's like that in the middle guys. It's those, 10 to 15 stolen base guys that I think might boost up, maybe a little bit, the 15 to 20 guys, them too. I think it's kind of the middle guys. Like, Carlos Correa is not stealing bases either way, but it's those,
Right.
Those
Exactly.
middle guys who steal 8 to 13, 8 to 15, maybe they get 18 to 23, and that's a pretty big difference for those guys.
Yeah. It's like when we talk about how Coors Field helps batting average a ton, but it doesn't help Ben Petrick improve his batting average.
Wow, a name I was sure we were not going to talk about tonight.
Yeah, exactly. I was trying to think of Rockies catchers, and there's another one. Brent Maine is a better example. If you're a bad hitter, you're still a bad hitter, but a good hitter benefits from Coors Field. Same thing with this. If you're a good base stealer, you know how to get a good jump, and you've got the speed, it's going to help you. I agree. I think it is the middle tier. I think the upper tier too. I mean, they may just get they already got a green light, but it's just that much easier for them to get there.
So as you're drafting, does it affect how do you not care as much about the big stolen base guys? You can get more from everybody, or do you think you just need more in general? Like how are you altering your draft strategy then knowing that there's another, 12 to 14% of stolen bases in the field?
I think it's a great question, and I'm not quite sure yet. My guess is it's like when Lisa and I were talking about when a category is plentiful, you need more of it.
Yep.
It's not you have to be more competitive in that arena as opposed to when sometimes people prioritize the scarce categories.
It's
I think
the
you need to prioritize
the 2019 home run argument, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
I think it's closer. I don't think it's going to be to that scale, but I do think we're going to need to get think about it a little bit more. I also do think though it might steer me away from the specialists. Adalberto Mondesi, for instance, I might be less inclined to go for because others, he's not going to be head and shoulders ahead of everybody else this year.
So last year, the leading stolen base guy was Jorge Mateo with 35. What number leads the majors this year?
45.
All right, it seems fair there. Mateo had 35, Cedric Mullins had 34, Edmund and Rosarena had 32, and then Bobby Witt had 30. I think John Birdie was in there somewhere. He didn't qualify though, so I need to change my search here. But so Birdie was right up there too. 35 was still the lead, right? Oh no, Birdie had 41. I'm sorry, he didn't qualify in there. So 41. So you're gonna go like a little higher than that, 48, 49, somewhere in there.
Maybe, yeah. Although Birdie was a weird case there too.
That was a fun 6 weeks. Those Birdie bags were nice for 6 weeks there. I wish it had held on a little bit longer.
Sucked. I hated them. I didn't have any of them.
Certainly did the job. Everybody, it sucked that he got hurt and all that, but he did plenty for that range. It's even better he did it in that quick amount of time. You have to play him for that much.
Better for you. I didn't get him.
His 4 home runs and 28 RBI. You had to stomach those, but when you're stealing a base every other day, it was pretty sweet.
Then again, I had a lot of Michael Harris, and that was pretty sweet. So we all have our guys that we had.
Good tease for someone we're going to talk about in a little bit. So what about the shift in terms of batting average? I think that the overwhelming thought is that lefties who have been pounding the ball into that shift with like you said, Manny Machado playing in right field. You see Anthony Rizzo, you see Matt Olson, these power hitters that hit these laser one hoppers into right field and they're outs. Like how much do you think the batting average gets affected? I know you mentioned that maybe if they're going to have the guy in second base, maybe he can start moving over right away. Although it takes some athleticism to do that. It'll be interesting to see if guys can. You got to run and stop and then adjust on the fly. It's a little bit different than being ready for the play. I mean, there's a reason that guys are standing there ready. How much do you think it really affects lefty hitters that we're looking at? You think there's some righty hitters too? Like how do you think the batting average moves based on this?
I think it's definitely going to help the lefties. I think it's left-handed pull hitters are going to definitely benefit the most. Jason Collette back in September, and I linked to his article on this, identified those who were hurt by the shift the most, and used XBA minus BA to kind of as a starting point there. There could be like teams have a ways of adapting, and that I think it'll be significant maybe early on. Although we'll see. I mean, do players hit the ball with less exit velocity in April than they do in June. That's that's the other thing is like how quick, sometimes maybe the lack of exit velocity in April will cover up some of that a little bit.
It's going to be the most painful part of the shift is every announcer, every time there's a hit in the hole, oh, we got rid of the shift. That's a hit. It's going to be so painful.
Oh, yeah. Oh, it's so refreshing to see that.
Luckily, I don't think we get John Smoltz until late in the year, but he would be all over that every time there's a ground ball. So I'm I won't miss that. But there's going to be a lot of annoying announcer comments about the shift the first month or so.
Yeah, well, especially because the shortstop's going to stand right at second base a lot of times. He just has to have the 2 feet on his side of the diamond when the pitcher is on the mound. The one thing you can't do,
and the infielder has to be on the dirt, correct?
Correct.
1 foot on the dirt.
I think so.
Okay.
And then it might be 2 feet, but the other thing though is like you can't like push guys like, okay, there's a lefty up. Let's have Machado and the second baseman switch watch. You can't do that either.
Oh, you can't do that either. Interesting.
No. But you can put a fifth outfielder in the infield
for like late game situation.
Yeah, kind of and I think you might do it a little earlier. I know there's a Gordon Wittenmeyer, the Chicago Sun-Times, wrote an article. Maybe the White Sox are going to experiment with that. You're going to see a lot of experimentation in spring training.
They don't have 3 guys to play the outfield anyway, so you might as well just play with 2, right?
Exactly.
Have Eloy go play Buck short for a little bit. Can't play the outfield anyway. We're perfect.
Yeah. And Luis Robert can catch anything too. So there's that.
Yeah, there you go. How weird do the bases look? I've seen a couple minor league clips of it, and they look kind of like cartoony bases. How quick do you think we'll get used to the size of the bases, like to the eye on TV?
Well, in person, I didn't notice.
Oh, you didn't notice
at Arizona Fall League.
Okay.
I just literally didn't notice. But maybe if I had been like focusing on that, I might have.
That says a lot, though. It means it's not like obviously stupid to look at.
No.
Okay. That's good.
I didn't think so. I really don't think the base size is going to matter that much. I really think the throw over rule is way more important.
So with the pitch timer, I don't know if you know, it's 15 seconds or 20 seconds when there's guys on base. Is there like a giant like NFL, or NBA shot clock that guys like? Well, a batter on base be able to look up and
it'll be like an NFL play clock. There's not going to be a buzzer.
The runner can like beat a 1. You can just go.
Yeah, and the other thing is a batter must be in the batter's box by 8 seconds to be ready to face a pitch.
Okay.
Too.
Nomar Garcia Parra is having huge nightmares about that.
Yeah, 2 years ago they implemented this in the fall league, and it was kind of annoying. Spencer Torkelson was at the plate against.
I remember we talked about that one.
Yeah, a Philly pitcher or whatever. I was sitting there with Keith Law, and we were kind of venting on it. And they called like it was actually I think I'm conflating 2 stories here. But anyhow, I was sitting with Keith and like there was like one time an automatic strike, another time an automatic walk, and it became like this ump show a little bit. And another scout turns around to Keith and goes, "Are you going to write about this S?" And then there's another time like it was Torkelson versus a Phillies prospect, and I forget which one, but it was a pretty significant one. Like we all wanted to see this confrontation, right. And instead it was 3-2 and Torkelson got called out with the automatic strike. Like,
yeah, that's horrible.
We're not here for that. No. And I'm afraid there is going to be a game.
Oh, there's going to be some umpire's going to want to make a point and call it for sure. I don't love that either. I don't love the I forget Ishmael Valdez used to be bad at, but like I don't mind the long baseball games either, but I hate the pitchers that take forever to. There's a Dodgers reliever recently. I can't think of his name right now.
Kelly Jansen.
Oh, I was thinking the setup guy.
Oh, I know who you're talking about, Baez.
Oh, yeah, Pedro Baez was horrible. There's an extreme there where you're like, oh my God, throw the ball. It's just so painful. Right. So that'll be interesting. What about
hold on one sec before you ask it. I would say the other thing about the pitch clock too is end of games, late tight games. That's where it's really going to be. Closers are notorious for just slowing the game down.
So there's no NFL like the rules change in the last 2 minutes or like it's the whole way through then.
Right, it's the whole way through. We'll see how it's enforced. I'm dreading freeze it. It says 7.8 seconds. We haven't gotten to 8 seconds yet, and they called it. We're going to get like replays on pitch clock or something like that.
Do you know if you're allowed to review that or not?
I don't know if you're.
I
doubt it.
That would be horrible.
I would highly doubt it.
Yeah, that'd be horrible.
Someone's going to say, see, he got it wrong. Just like you see, like with the play clock in the NFL.
Yeah, I was going to say, we should do that extra second. Because the NBA, it's like that light's on and it's done. In the NFL, it's like they count that extra second all the time.
The Aaron Rodgers thing happens all the time.
Always. So I want to ask you about like new stadium dimensions. There's a couple new ones. We have Toronto that moved in like the right center field fence a good amount, but the walls went up. I think we're a little hyper cognizant of it now because of how different Baltimore was last year. Like
100%.
Because we were always like, oh, yeah, they're moving walls, whatever. But Baltimore like significantly changed how their ballpark played last year. That I think once we saw the pictures like in March last year, we're like, oh my God, that's like a huge chunk that is now in play. We saw
the overlays too.
Yeah, and even the overlays, you're like, oh, this seems pretty weird. But like once you saw the actual like where it was, you're like, oh my God, Camden looks totally different. You visualize all those home runs in the first, all those Gleyber Torres home runs in the first 5 rows. But Detroit moved their wall in about 10 feet in center field. Toronto had a bunch of changes kind of up and down, and then in right center field. New York in Citi Field, the Mets are bringing in a big section of right field. So do you pay attention to these when you're drafting hitters?
Sure.
Like, are you like, oh, I'm in the 26th round and Brandon Belt's a lefty in Toronto, like maybe I just take a shot here? Or is it kind of little things like that? Or are you actually factoring in pretty big based on what happened in Baltimore last year?
Yeah. I'm going to guess that it's about, I like Riley Green. I bumped up a little bit. Like the article that I cited in the Detroit Free Press, I think it's Free Press, talked about how lefties got killed. And they showed an example like Riley Green getting robbed by a play. Yeah. The funny thing is, so they're moving center field in 10 feet, and they're also lowering the fences in center, and right. But it's still the second deepest center field in baseball. It went from first to second.
Yeah, there's balls that go to die out there. We've seen it for many, many years. I have nightmares of the A's playing Detroit and losing some home runs there too. I think Josh Reddick was the one lost a home run out there too. Yeah. But it'll be interesting. I think Toronto looked like the one that's maybe the most drastic, but it'll be interesting to see what we get. And sometimes you get weird things and we won't notice it for the first month and a half or so. But yeah, lefties in Toronto. I mean, they traded away two of their righty hitters too, so maybe they're factoring it in too. They traded for Varsho and traded away Teoscar and Lourdes Gurriel, so maybe they're thinking about it also.
But they're also thinking outfield defense a lot. They brought in Kiermaier. They traded for Varsho. They cited outfield defense as a reason. They're raising the fences in some areas. They're moving it in one area, but out another. They're making it asymmetrical. So they're counting on like these funky triples alley type bounces and things like that, and other teams not to be able to adjust as quickly as their own outfielders. So it's going to be definitely one to watch. I don't think it plays purely as a pro offensive or pro defensive move. Like the raising the fences could hurt Vlad because he gets all those line drives.
Yeah. That's a good point too. It'll be fun. I like that baseball stadiums are different. I know some people hate the fact that everything's different. I like that all that stuff's different. Lastly, before we jump into some player talk here, do you, when you're drafting, you're doing your projections, I know you're heavy into this now, do you take the ball into account at all? I know last year we had the humidor, and that was obviously made a big difference, put it in all 30 stadiums. I am one who doesn't even try and guess on the ball because there's no way. I don't think that Rob Manfred knows how to change the ball, so I don't think I can really impact it myself. If they want to tweak it, I still think they'll mess it up. So I'm not taking into account, but it's something that I watch early on in the year. I mean, I know April has less offense anyway, but I think that you can tell. I mean, you can tell watching games from difference between 2019 and 2022. It was pretty obvious when guys hit, kind of hard hit balls to right field that were caught, 10 feet in front of the fence that were gone a couple years ago. I think we watch enough games we can tell, but it's something I'm not going to factor in, but maybe I'll adjust kind of on the fly as we go. But I don't try and get into factoring that in because there's no way for me to know.
Yeah, I threw my hands up in the air this year, especially when you heard the reports that there were 2 different balls last year. I'm just like,
do you
maybe
think,
3?
Even. Do you think they'll try and tweak it for a little more pop? Do you actually think they'll try and do something?
They'll try to do something.
Yeah,
I don't know what. It may not even be for more pop. I don't think they viewed it as a problem. I think we viewed it as a problem, but I don't think they did.
Yeah. And I think I more viewed it as just frustrating. You don't know what's going to happen. And pitchers were frustrated. They don't pick up a ball. They don't know what it's going to feel like. And, then Aaron Judge is playing and he gets a different ball. So there's that also. But I think that's the Goldilocks ball, I think is, that's a small sample. I've read and heard some stuff on that says, it's such a small sample that you shouldn't really freak out about that.
Yeah, exactly.
So let's jump into some player talk. I want to talk, I don't want to talk about specific closers, but I want to talk about the closer pool. But first, a note from our sponsors at Fantrax. Fantrax is the most customizable fantasy platform in the industry, offering the greatest fantasy experience for your dynasty, keeper, redraft, and best ball leagues. Coming from another service, Fantrax makes it easy. Fantrax can import any of your current leagues and customize it if needed. Fantrax offers the most in-depth player pool in the industry, including minor league players. Do you need a customizable commissioner service for your fantasy league? Fantrax offers more customization than any other platform. Waivers, categories, scoring system, schedule. Fantrax offers custom solutions for all that and more, and it's all free. Sign up for free today and be entered to win an official MLB signed jersey from Vladimir Guerrero Jr. Simply go to fantrax.com/RotoWire and sign up today. That's fantrax.com/RotoWire. Fantrax, the home of fantasy sports. So, Jeff, closers and saves in general have changed a lot over the last few years. I looked at, kind of the mark I look at as a target in, NFBC leagues, the online championship, the main event is kind of like 80th percentile overall. That puts you in a pretty good place for the overall. You got to beat that a little bit to win, but it's a good target. You never want to target something exactly, but it's a good target. There was last year, 67 saves, 80% in the main event. That is a really no number. It used to be like in the mid 80s. 72 saves was the 80% number in the online championship. So you and I have talked many times about closers in the past. It's always like, I need my 2.5 guys. I need 2 set guys and maybe a half guy, someone half the weeks, that sort of thing. You don't need that anymore. You can need kind of 1 and then piece together some, or maybe 2 and then not worry about the second spot. We'll get into the specific players here, but how are you viewing saves in general, kind of how managers are managing bullpens these days?
I don't have one hard, fast approach. Last year, I had 2 diametrically different drafts in the main event with regard to saves. In one draft, the one Live Vegas one, we had the number 3 pick, and I took Hendricks in the second round. And the online one, that main event that Tim and I did together, we took Scott Barlow as our only closer in the first 20 rounds in the 9th round. Or maybe it was the 8th or 9th. But point being is, both did fine. Both were competitive teams. There are 2 different ways to get there. Yeah. So I don't think you have to have one approach. I just think you need to know the consequences of each approach. And like any approach, it's like Scott likes to say, or Gene McCaffrey likes to say, Scott Pianowski, that is, or Gene McCaffrey likes to say, any plan works with the right players. You have to identify the right players either way. So I think I'd like to have at least one solid closer, and one of my DCs, I think I did 2 and just had some fun with it. But these DCs are different, obviously, than Fab Leagues too.
So we've got I looked at it and I kind of broke it down by ADP range. There's 11 closers that go in the top 80. That's a pretty good number. That takes you to the middle of the 6th round in a 15-teamer, or the middle of the 7th round in a 12-teamer. Edwin Diaz, Emmanuel Clase, Josh Hader, Romano, Devin Williams, Raisel Iglesias, Ryan Presley, Bautista, Ryan Helsley, Camilo Doval, and Kenley Jansen are those 11. So it's one of those things like, are you going into draft not necessarily needing Diaz or Clase, but do you want one of those 11? Clay Holmes kind of falls right on the edge of that, so you could put him in there if you wanted to. You couldn't if you want to put him in the next range. I broke it off there, but are you going in thinking I need to get one of these 11 guys in a 15-teamer where 4 teams aren't going to get him, or maybe even more if someone takes 2?
Almost certainly.
Yeah, someone will take 2, right? So there's like 9 teams are going to get one or 2 of these guys. Are you going in like with the thought that in the 5th round, if I don't have one of these, or the 4th round, I'm just going to get one, suck it up, take one, and move on? Or are you willing to play the game a little dangerous there?
I think I'm willing to. It's not my first choice.
I think I'm not willing to. I think I'm very willing to get one of these guys and then play it dangerous after that. But I think I want one of these. I think I want one of these 11.
I think that makes sense.
But with the way saves are, I'm way more willing to not worry about my second one right away. Where I used to be, when you needed 85, I used to be like, I need to get my 2 and then I'll kind of piece it together later. I'm pretty good with getting one solid one and kind of piecing together as we go along and later in the draft and in season. I looked at my teams last year, and that's kind of what I had. I ended up with 67 and 69 saves in my 2-man event teams. And, I had Ryan Presley in one of them. The other one, I had Taylor Rogers, who worked for a while, but
it didn't work in a big way.
It didn't work at all. And I had David Bednar, who halfway through the draft apparently was splitting the job, but then got it and then got hurt. But I think getting one of these 11 is pretty important for me. And in a league with an overall component to it, you have to get saves to compete overall. If you're in your league or a standalone league, I can see punting saves fully and trying to piece it together later, or just punting it fully. But in a league with an online component or an overall component, I think I'm putting my my kind of tier break at the end of these 11 and making sure that I get one of them.
I think that's fair. I now have to look and see how I did on saves in these respective my main event leagues. I think there's a big difference between how you handle it in a 15 versus a 12 too.
I agree too.
I think I'm way more willing to take chances in the 12.
In a 12 team or those last 2 months, like people drop closers, people don't pay as much attention. There's closers available. I always find myself, if I really need some saves late in the 12 team, where I can usually figure out a way to get some.
Yeah, I think that's fair. So I had 62 saves in the Hendricks League last year. And now I got to look and see what I did in the other one here. Let's see. Here it is. In that one, I had 50 saves. Wow. Both teams finished third in my league. The team that had 50 saves finished higher in the overall.
Yeah, that team with 50 saves, you have 62 saves. Are we talking about a top 10 finish and winning your league, though? You have to look at your standings points, I know, but like, I felt like saves was a stressor for you the last 3 months.
Oh, it was, and how my chasing of them caused me other problems. Yeah, it's possible. Let's see. It would definitely have gotten me second place in the league. It would not have won the league. And well, I don't know that because I don't know what it would have done to the ratios, what I would have done with that spot.
What I would have done, you would have been a little better in wins and Ks if you didn't chase closers down during the season.
Early in the season, I was going 8-1, and I was fine with that. But so it's hard to play the woulda, coulda, shoulda game. But yeah, obviously, 12 more saves would have been nice. Yeah.
So I know we're not fully breaking down all the players here. We'll probably do that at some point. We'll do a closer podcast at some point. But are there anybody in this 11 that you're like, I see this 11. I'm just using 11 as a number because I broke it off there. Is there anybody you don't want in this range? I remember last year.
I wanted to ask you that. Dang it.
Last year, you were like, I don't want to roll this Chapman no matter what. And that was a freaking great call because it did not work out. He was bad. And I remember I was like, really? He's one of those guys that just always gets saves and always solid. You kind of nailed that one. So I was hoping you're going to nail another one for me.
Yeah, I still might get there. I'm not there yet. I'm a little worried about Devin Williams, but I have rostered him also. So,
is Devin Williams a walk issue for you? Is that your problem with him?
It's a walk issue. It's his reaction to the Hader trade. How he almost, he was kind of shying from the job a little bit. He's so good, but yeah, that's the thing. Actually, Helsley's another concern too because of health.
See, you just friggin' took mine.
Sorry,
that was my one. So. My issue with Helsley, I think Helsley's awesome. I had him last year. I picked him up last year, and he was great. But then you look up, and he had 19 saves, and that he was getting saves early in the year too. They use him a lot as a fireman. They used him a lot in the 8th. They have Gallegos back there. I just think for where Helsley's getting drafted, and it's whatever it is, 60s or 70s in ADP. I just think I want to know he's going to get a chance to get 28 to 30 saves. And I don't know that's the case. I think that. If he gets 22, I don't think that's anywhere near outside the realm of possibility, even if he stays healthy. And he had the injury towards the end of the year last year. And I just, I'm worried a little bit of Helsley, despite how much I like him as a pitcher, how much he helped me out last year. The dude was unbelievable last year. 125, 0.74 whip, 40% strikeout rate. But I'm worried about usage there.
Yeah, I am too. The fact that Gallegos is still there. Gallegos is one of the slowest pitchers in baseball, by the way. He has been cited multiple times as one of the guys that might get hurt by this pitch clock rule. So for whatever that's worth.
Do you think there's going to be some pitchers who get mentally, whatted by the pitch clock and struggle because of it?
Adjusted? Yes.
Yes, adjusted. There you go. I think so too. I think it's impossible to guess which ones will have the issue with that, but I think it's going to get some guys ahead early on.
Well, of course it is. I think you will see more blown saves this year because of the pitch clock. Not just because it's in their head, but less recovery time. Closers, back-end relievers, they're max effort guys. Velocity is the game, right? I think we're going to see a little drop in velocity, perhaps. I think, some teams will teach breathing techniques and get there better. Or, they'll have performance coaches like Wendy Rhodes or something. They'll be able to nail it there a little bit more.
A Billions drop. That was beautiful.
We're watching Billions right now. I'm almost done with
I quit. I couldn't do season 6. I quit.
It was pretty bad. It is pretty
bad. No axe. I was out.
I'm a completist though.
I'm a quitter in many ways in TV shows.
Yeah, I
have a long line of TV shows that I ended up not finishing.
You're better off for that, by the way.
Yeah, some of those probably true.
Because how many times has that show disappointed you and then rallied and been better again?
Only once. Only once ever.
Which show was?
The Americans, because I didn't like season 5, and I
was thinking about that show too.
I thought season 6 was absolutely my favorite.
Knocked it out of the park to finish.
My favorite finish of a season series ever, but I thought season 5 was a drag.
I didn't hate season 5, but it was definitely a downturn. I thought Justified also had a similar arc, that they had one season that was the Michael Rappaport season. Well, it wasn't so great, but everything else was pretty awesome. I love Justified. It's.
I have never watched it.
Yeah, you should watch it. And I know who else? NFBC player loves Justified. Finished second to 2 years ago in the overall.
Emmett Rowland?
Yes, Emmett. Yes. Right. Emmett's a Justified guy too.
Emmett's good human.
Yes, he is.
Big fan. I've been friends with him for many, many years. Great dude. So closers, and say you missed these 11. You're like, all right, I just, someone slipped to me. Last year to me, it was Aaron Judge. I'm like, oh, I'm going to take Aaron Judge and skip the closer run. There's only 7 guys that are between picks 80 and 150. So in a 15-teamer, essentially rounds 6 through 10, they are Clay Holmes, David Bednar, Scott Barlow, who, is moving around a little bit now with Chapman being signed, Yohan Duran, Daniel Bard, Diaz, your buddy in Cincinnati there, and Andres Munoz in Seattle. All these guys have issues. I think it's very clear to me, at least, that these are second-tier guys. Maybe Clay Holmes. I think I could push him up there in a top 12 instead of a top 11. But this next batch, either bad teams or bad situations are up in the air. I mean, Munoz and Barlow, we don't know if they're going to be the guy. We don't know with Duran also. Are you comfortable with any of these guys as your closer 1? Are these all guys like, if I get them as a closer 2, I feel better? Because I'd love to just skip this group, to be honest with you.
Well, I think knowing that is liberating. If you have a tier that you want to skip, I mean, it's the greatest feeling in the world. Because then you see those guys go off the clock.
Realize even more how much I need to force a top 11 one, though.
Yeah, sure. Okay, I like Barlow.
As much as it hurts.
So I like Barlow a lot. Maybe it's just because I thought he was good for me last year. Because not only did he get a good amount of saves, but he also got wins. He got you strikeouts. He did a lot of good things. We got a new manager there. We have a new pitching coach there. I don't think the Matheny madness is going to carry over.
Do you have a feeling on how they end up using Chapman?
Well, if I'm fading him last year, I'm fading him this year. But
sure, in terms of fantasy, yes. But do you think they'll force Chapman into that closer role with the thought of if he gets 22 saves before August, we can trade him?
I think they'll use him as a cautionary tale that when a closer is past his expired date.
See, I think so too. I do. I think he's fried too myself. But
yeah.
And I mean, I love some of these guys as pitchers. So I should say when I skip it, I just worried about.
I love them as humans. I don't know. You're just so what can he do for me?
Yeah, I don't really care about them as humans.
No,
so, I mean, you look at Munoz in Seattle. I just don't know with him and Paul Sewald. They both have some injury issues too, but Munoz is unbelievable last year. 39% strikeout rate, 6% walk rate. You don't see those numbers very often. A whip under 0.9. I mean, dude is unbelievable. 21.5% swing strike rate is a bonkers number. So great pitcher, but I just have no idea yet how they're going to use him.
Yeah, that is fair, and especially because it's not like the leadership has changed on this team,
right? And Sewald's a good pitcher too.
Yeah, he is. I know you had a lot of Sewald last year, so
I did. Sewald's big man. Was dropped him a couple of times when they were kind of moving around in the rotation or in the back in the bullpen, but he ended up with 20 saves and his whip was 0.77 last year. So we're talking about a guy that is also really, really good at just keeping guys off base.
So I think with relievers, I think we have a really hard time sometimes keeping the long view. If they're not getting saves, we forget about what they're doing else for us there. Agreed. Especially if they get one outing in the 8th inning for a given week because the team isn't winning or they decide to go somewhere else for needing him as a fireman in this one particular instance. Usually they get there for you. You mentioned the overall numbers for Munoz, the overall numbers for some of these elite relievers, but you got to have them rostered. You got to have them active.
You have to have them active.
It's like Clay Holmes at the beginning of the year last year when he was turning in all those awesome innings, but people didn't have him active.
I sat Sewald for the first time he got 3 saves in a week is the only reason I didn't drop him, and I just put him in the rest of the way because I was like, I can't. As long as he has that chance to get. He had he had a week right after that he got it too. So it was it worked out okay. But yeah, the guy, that's the hard part. It's a really good point by you is that those guys are hard to keep in your lineup every week because they get frustrating. You look up and they pitched 1 or 2 innings, and if they give up a couple runs, it's really bad too.
Oh, it's the worst.
And then you got a time where you're like, all right, well now I got to take him out. And they get 2 or 3 saves. It's frustrating. But I think someone like Munoz or Duran or Barlow, if you draft them at this point, you're probably not taking them out, at least for a while. But in this range, two other guys I want to ask you about. Talk to me about Diaz in Cincinnati. You think he's the guy there? Do you really like him? What are we looking at with Alexis Diaz?
David Bell has never had the guy there.
So why is he going so early then?
Because he was good last year, and he's Diaz's brother. I mean, no, and he was good. I mean, but I just don't even think there's that many save chances to be had in Cincy. But I mean, every bad team still has usually 20 to 30 saves.
Sure.
But I don't know.
So you're not taking him in the first 10 rounds then?
No, I'm not.
Okay.
Not
that answers that question.
I don't want to deal with David Bell.
Do you dip your toe into the Daniel Bard water at all? Because I am, as much as I love the story last year, I'm fully out on this one.
I'm not fully out, but I want to hear more from you on this one.
220 BABIP and a .45 homer per 9 in cores is just going to bounce crazy this year. I love the story. Simple. I love the story. I mean, he walks over 10% of guys too. Like at some point, that is in cores that is going to blow big. His strand percentage last year was 82%. Like everything lined up perfectly for him. And he strikes guys out. He gets ground balls. You like that combo, but man, you take those walks, you take all those numbers. I think if he was in the round like last year, I was like, I think it's great. Round 20 is a guy who might close. Awesome. Take the chance. In the 9th round, there's no way I'm doing it this year.
Yeah. I hear you on that. And I get you. I think I have rostered Bard when I was waiting on closers before. So, but I see like the hit rate on this level is usually pretty tough. You're going to miss half these guys.
Yes, that's true. I mean, a lot of these guys are just going to either lose their job or get hurt or be bad, but some of them will step up and have 30 saves. The next round, the hard part here is if you like, I'm going to skip this range. There's only 3 closers to go in the next 50 picks of ADP. The 150 to 200, there's 3 guys. Jose Leclerc, Paul Sewald from a team we've already freaking talked about a guy. So there's 2 guys already in Seattle, and Pete Fairbanks on a team that nobody jerks around closers and back and bullpen more than Tampa. Like, what do you do with these 3 guys? It's like if you just have one guy, at some point you got to get a second guy. Or do you like any of these 3 guys? I
like Fairbanks. He got paid.
Okay. Yeah. You think that matters for Tampa Bay in terms of actually using him in the 9th inning? I
do.
Because I love him as a pitcher.
Yeah. I do. I think, health is an issue. The Rays are an issue. Kevin Cash is an issue. If I'm willing to, and the difference, I think I can parse the difference between Diaz and Fairbanks on 2 different levels. One, the cost of acquisition. Fairbanks is going cheaper. And 2, it's a better team. There's more wins, more chances to be had. So I do think you're going to get those cumulative stats with him, and you'll get some wins that you wouldn't get otherwise. If you're not getting the save. So there is that also that helps.
You had to put a number on Pete Fairbanks. Say, let's throw injury out the window. He pitches all year. We're talking 22 saves, 18 saves. What's your number?
I just changed him today. Let me tell you what I put him at.
Up to 45.
Exactly. Yeah. He is my closer 3. There's 2 that get more than him even.
I was gonna say at 45. I want to know who closer 1 and 2 are.
Yeah, I put him at 21.
All right, so right in that. I said 18 to 22. So yeah, right in there. His K minus walk last year was over 40%. That's insane number.
Yeah, it's gross. It's really gross.
His whip was 0.6. I know it was only 24 innings, but he was really good. Someone in the chat asked about one of the guys in this next range here. So then from ADP 200 to 250. So we're talking like, rounds 12 to whatever that is, somewhere there, 13 to 16, somewhere in there. So like middle of the draft, we've got Alex Lang in Detroit now. They traded Soto, Kyle Finnegan in Washington, an awful team. Jorge Lopez, Evan Phillips, who was the one that Fox Mulder asked about, an X-Files fan apparently asked about in the chat. And then your nightmare from last year, Sir Anthony Dominguez, where you guys picked him up and he got hurt the next day. But do you like it to be in this range? Because I think Evan Phillips is really, really good and really, really interesting. But Daniel Hudson is there, and I imagine is going to steal some 9th inning work. And the Dodgers have pretty much said they're going to go committee no matter what.
Well, yeah, the Dodgers are going to be this year's super frustrating team because, they look at so many good arms in that bullpen.
Evan Phillips was awesome last year.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And Hudson was awesome before he got hurt. Gratterall throws 100 miles an hour.
Yep.
Yeah, right then and there. Even Shelby Miller, I think they could do stuff with. I mean, he's like
old friend Shelby Miller.
Yeah, who's getting a chance. He's on the right team. You know, so many times, like, you're like, oh, dismiss this guy's name. But then you put him on the Dodgers, like, okay, now I'm interested. Because the Dodgers don't miss a lot.
Alex Vesia has an ERA of 2.2 the last 2 seasons. Like,
yeah.
They're obviously good at everything they do. But I love Evan Phillips. I just don't know. I mean, in terms of a fantasy setup, you might get 7 saves.
Yeah. I'll probably roster him in at least one league.
Just because he's a big fantasy football player.
Is he? I did not even.
He was in the Scott Fish Bowl this year.
Oh, cool. Very cool. The thing is, I just think he's good, and Dodgers are going to win 95 games or whatever. Yep. I mean, they spent a little less this offseason, but
they're still going to be good. Yeah.
Yeah, they're still going to be really good. I mean, look at that rotation. It's gross.
And I think you can take a guy like that if you have one of these locked in guys. They're going to get you. Obviously, keep saying top 11, but those guys can get hurt too. Like there's no way around it. Some of them will struggle, but for the most part, those are guys that are going to be good if they're healthy and appear to have the job for the most part. We talked about Helsley a little bit, but I think I want to be able to pick really good pitchers late that maybe fall into 15 saves. In order to do that, I think you have to have one anchor in there. So I think the more I study this, the more I looked at it, as it gets grosser down ADP, and there's not that many guys in these second or third tiers. I think that top 11 really jumps out to me. It was the lesson I learned from looking at this afternoon.
Yeah.
Any other thoughts on closers? Any other like later guys you're really looking at? Anybody in the A's bullpen? Give me some Trevor May or Domingo Acevedo or Danny Jimenez
or AJ Puck.
AJ Puck is apparently in the starting rotation, which is just not going to go well.
He won't. Who lasts longer in the rotation, Garrett Whitlock or AJ Puck?
I take any bit over AJ Puck lasting longer and health wise. He's just going to get hurt if he starts. He's just going to get hurt. He cannot start. I do not think he can start. If I were the A's, I would try to make him start because I try to see if you could do it. I just don't think it's going to work, but they're not playing for anything. I'd probably do the same thing and see what you got there. And then, one more time if he gets hurt, I think he's a reliever from now on after that.
Yeah.
I don't begrudge them. I'd probably the same thing I would do with we're going to win 28 games on the season. You might as well take some experimentation.
I think that's right. I think that's right. I don't know. And, the thing is, like, there's good teams that we don't know who their closers are going to be yet. We don't know, the Phillies, what they're going to do with that mess. We don't know what the Dodgers are going to do. This is like, it's becoming more of a thing that good teams, but don't have a designated closer.
And it's not like they're just going to find one in spring training. They're going to go in and just kind of mix and match and do that. And it's going to be, it's funny because you mentioned the Phillies, you look at roster resource, they have 4 guys listed as closer with the Phillies. So they've given up there too, but there's going to be more and more teams that do this. Are you a fan of saves plus holds? I know you hate the hold stat. Are you a fan of changing this rule or just kind of dealing with it as it is?
No, just deal with it. It is. It's the stat changes. Do we get rid of stolen bases when stolen bases are down? No, we don't. Same thing with saves.
There's years I want to when I draft them poorly.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. I mean, I'm with you on that. We all have our skeletons in that particular closet, so no need to bring.
The line of the shield is jumping up and down and waving at you right now. Boy, do we!
Yeah, I know. I wasn't going to throw it at you, but
I throw it at myself.
Yeah.
Question. Go ahead.
I got one more team. We have to bring this up.
Go.
What are you doing with the White Sox?
First of all, really sad because Liam Hendricks is one of my favorite players.
Yeah,
hopefully, more than anything, hope he gets well soon and healthy. It sounds like they caught it pretty early and he's getting treatment and all that. But I think it's fair to say we're not thinking he's going to pitch anytime remotely soon this year. Probably a pretty intensive recovery process there. Kendall Graveman is probably the guy I would imagine. I mean, it seems like if you look at that bullpen, it would seem like it'd be him. I mean, I know they like Aaron Bummer, but he's a lefty. I think they want to leave him there. You got Reynaldo Lopez. Some people like is kind of a sleeper based on how he pitched last year. He was a whip under 1 last year. The strikeout rate has clearly been different when he's been a reliever. As a starter, he was a really low strikeout guy. But I think it's Graveman to start. If you wanted to speculate on Reynaldo Lopez, I wouldn't blame you too much. But I think it seems to me like it'll be at least Graveman to start. He was okay last year, but then you look at the ERA is good. The whip was 1.4, which scares the crap out of me. I just that like bump he had in Seattle that one year where he was throwing like 101 and striking everybody out seemed to go way up a little bit last year. The strikeout rate was down like 4%.
Yeah. One other guy I got to ask you about, and that is, are you in on Carlos Estevez at all?
So he's moving from Coors to Anaheim, which is always a really good thing, right?
Yeah.
I think they clearly didn't want it to be Jimmy Herget last year. He was pitching well, and they really wouldn't have him be there. But yeah, I don't know. I guess if I had to guess right now, I think Estevez probably gets the ball in the first save off. But man, I think it's a kind of a mess all year, probably.
Yeah, I mean,
do you like it? Do you like anyone there?
I like Estevez a little bit. I mean, I think Herget's a good pitcher still.
I do too.
I still think Herget's a good pitcher, but Phil Nevin's still the manager there.
He is still the manager there, isn't he?
That's going to annoy the living heck out of me.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's probably Estevez. I mean, they signed him, but he's an okay strikeout guy, 23%. The walks are a little bit high, but then he pitched in Coors Field, so maybe you factor that in too. But I mean, you look at last year, his BABIP was under 250. The years before, 380, 352, and his ERA was 7.5 and 4.5. Yeah, I'm probably staying. I don't think any of those guys are good enough that I have to take him. If I did, maybe just be Herget because I think he's a good pitcher. But I'm probably a little less in on Estevez than I was before I looked at him.
Yeah.
Question in the chat since it came up. Do you have any strong feelings about Yankees infielder Oswaldo Cabrera?
I do not have strong feelings. I think he's interesting. I think playing time is, he's going to have to hit the ground running.
Yeah, that's good.
Because Peraza's there, Cabrera's there, Torres is there, and then there's this guy named Anthony Volpe who is just knocking on the door. And I think Cabrera can play outfield and infield. I mean, that does work in his favor a little bit there.
And I know he's kind of old now, but DJ LeMahieu plays there too.
Yeah,
and Kinder Falefa's there too. Like those guys are going to play at some point.
I don't think IKF's a factor.
He shouldn't be.
No, I don't think he is.
LeMahieu's got to be a little bit of a factor, though, right?
For sure. I mean, what a fall from grace he had last year. But
Grace, yeah. I think Oswaldo Cabrera is going to be really good at some point. I really like his swings, more of like an eye test thing. I like his switch hitter. I really like his swing. I liked watching him play last year. I've actually picked him up in the main event last year, so I watched him a bunch. I think he's going to be good. I'm just not sure the playing time is fully there yet for him to be good quite yet.
I also need to confess that Oswaldo Cabrera and Oswald Peraza, I am going to screw that up royally.
I do it every time. Peraza is the more sexy stolen base speed power guy, right? Yes.
Yeah, he's the shortstop too, though. Also, that's the way I view it. That's the other way I look at it.
They both had some speed power in the minors, though. They're both pretty fun prospects, actually.
Yeah, they are. It's just, and they're both in the 300s in terms of ADP. I think Peraza is typically going to cost you a little bit more, but not always. They have a pretty wide range, both of them.
I think playing time is going to be frustrating. I think your point about starting off fast is going to be pretty big. Whoever kind of gets hot first might end up with a longer runway.
Yeah, especially because there's a lot of pressure on the Yanks, as always.
There certainly is there. So let's talk about a few intriguing ADP thoughts. I started to look at ADP. I just looked at the top 150. I wanted to bring up some names that I thought were interesting. But first, a note from our sponsors at UnderDog. The fantasy baseball season is underway. There's no better place to play than UnderDog Fantasy, the easiest place to play fantasy baseball. Right now, UnderDog has MLB best ball tournaments live, including the Dinger, which has $500,000 in total prizes. In best ball, all you do is join a contest, draft your team, and that's it. There are no waivers, no trades, and no in-season management. Draft 20 rounds of players and get the best cumulative scores in all your starting lineup: 3 pitchers, 3 infielders, 3 outfielders, and 1 flex each week of the regular season. Getting started is simple. Go to UnderdogFantasy.com, sign up with promo code RWMLB. Not only will UnderDog double your initial deposit up to $100, but you also get 6 months of a RotoWire subscription, all for free. Again, that's UnderdDog Fantasy, promo code RWMLB. Draft your $100,000 Dinger team today. So, Jeff, I was flipping through some ADP, starting to formulate some draft lists and rankings here. First thing I noticed, no starting pitchers in the top 15, unless you count Shohei Ohtani. He's there too, but it is not a starting pitcher year. Do you think that'll change when we get into March main events, or pitchers always go up a little bit? But I think that I don't think we're going to see quite the number of names in the first round that we normally see.
I think we've had like 5 and 6 starting pitchers at times in the first round. I think we get like
there. 1 or 2 at most. I think Burns and Cole maybe, but I think that's probably it. And I think most drafts, those guys will be at the turn. So maybe first, maybe second.
Yeah, I think that's probably right. I got to pull up pull up, see who's close. I mean, it's really just Burns and Cole.
Burns is right there. He's 16. He's like pick 15.1, or he's number 16 overall. So he's right there at the turn. So he'll probably get up in there. I think he'll be a late first rounder in most drafts, and maybe a Cole pushed up. But you're right. I think we're not going to get the 4, 5, 6 kind of guys that we got the last few years.
Yeah, because the next two are DeGrom and Alcantara, and I don't see them getting to the first round.
I don't think so. I think
DeGrom maybe actually
if he looks awesome in spring, maybe. But I still think people are going to hesitate pulling that trigger in the first round based on how last year happened.
The way it happened last year, where he was awesome early in spring training. People used 1.1 on him in some cases, and then is Lucy with the football there. But
so some names that jumped out to me, guys, that either I thought were a little bit higher, that could be a little bit lower. The first one I want to talk about is someone who's kind of dropped a little bit lately, but kind of a hot topic is Michael Harris. You and I talked about him a lot last year because you picked him up in the main event. He was obviously awesome for you. Hit 297, 19 home runs, 20 stolen bases, and 441 plate appearances last year. Good hard hit numbers, a barrel rate over 10%, hard hit rate over 45%. K rate was a little bit high, but he had a low K rate in the minors, so that's a first time around the majors kind of thing. So now Harris is a second round pick. Are you still in on Harris a second round? Where do you think? How do you feel about this price? With the thought that maybe he can't hit lefties, maybe he won't hit second against lefties. Where do you think this kind of works out?
I'm like a lot of people in our community that I love the player. I'm a little nervous about the price.
Yeah,
but if I get him at pick 33, I'm probably taking him. If I have to take him at 28, it's tougher.
I think he'll be there at 33 for you in main event. I think he's going to be a guy as a few pitchers move up and a few people are wary of him. You'll hear a lot of you're going to hear a lot of the hit 240 against lefties. Not, Albie's going to hit second against lefties, that sort of thing. I think he's going to move to the middle of the third round. And I think I agree with you. I think in the second round, I'm like, I think there's some names that I'd rather prefer, but as you get it 8 to 10 picks further, I think he becomes pretty sexy pretty quick.
Yeah. I want to get like 7, 8, 9 again, as far as KDS goes. I just, like you, I love being in the middle of the draft.
I do too. I worry a little bit this year that I think there's a very clear 1 through 5. But as I get closer to that, I'll kind of figure that more out. But I think the thing for me always is the drop off in the second round, the third round. Like you can always see a drop off there, and you want to avoid that because you want 2 of those studs. So it's that's one that I'll have to get into, and we see as injuries play out in spring training and stuff. Guys fall in and out of there. But I think Harris is interesting, and he's going to be someone that I think falls into the third round in most drafts.
You might be right. I mean, I when I did my search, I did it from like January 15th through today, and that's 76 drafts, and his range is 17 to 46.
Yeah.
I think people are always going to fixate on power speed combo though, and that is always going to prevent him from falling too far, I think.
Yeah, I just see the names right behind him. I think like Alcantara, DeGrom, Strider, Diaz. I think and Woodruff. I think all those pitchers are going to move up. I think it's going to force someone has to move down as a few guys move up, and I just think he's going to be that guy that I think he'll be an early third rounder, better than a late second rounder in most drafts.
Did you see though that Arenado is at 28 in this range though? I mean, that's a third base freak out right now.
That is a third base freak out for sure, and obviously a freak out because Arenado was really good last year.
Yeah,
I won't be taking Nolan Arenado in the second round.
No, I won't either.
So I'm trying to jump back a little bit here, and a guy that is nearly impossible to figure out. I think he was everybody wants to fade this guy last year, is Adolis Garcia in Texas. His ADP right now is about right around 60, so the 4-5 turn in a main event. Another great year, though. He had 250, but he had 27 home runs, 25 stolen bases. 250 was not bad last year with the way batting average was. He's a really good hard contact guy, 47% hard hit, over almost 13% barrel rate. Dropped his K rate a little bit. That was the big concern everybody had, was he was a 30% strikeout guy. He's down to 28%. Are you back? Are you in this time? Or are you back out again? It seems like everybody's fading him yet again.
I'll take him at the faded price. There's and I don't want to take him right at his average, but there's leagues where he's going 80th, 75th to 80th. Yeah. There's not going to be too many power speed guys in that range. You understand he comes with a certain set of flaws. Batting average is just not likely going to be a thing.
Yep.
But the lineup's better around him, I think, a little bit. It's not great. Bottom half of the lineup's still pretty bad, but top half is stronger. He's gonna get counting stats. It's just a question of can he put is he going to put 230 in play, and are you willing to deal with that pain if he does?
I think the problem is, like, I think 215 is probably there somewhere. I mean, he was under 10th percentile in whiff rate and chase rate.
Yep.
But I mean, he's talented too. Like we've had guys like this before that, like we say swing and miss a lot, but they make hard contact. They make hard contact early in counts. They when they hit it, they hit it. And he's just, as long as he's willing to run still, I think that, I mean, there's not many guys you can get 25 from outside the first couple of rounds.
Right. Although I think maybe you get more of that this year, and that changes things a little bit.
It's a fair point. I mean, so he's at 243 1 year, 251, but his bad BABIP is 306 and 309, like good, but not, not the crazy numbers you see sometimes when it comes along with batting average you don't expect. So he's a tough guy to figure though, because as you look deep, you realize all the flaws from the swing and miss. But he's an uber talented guy, and he's 29, so he's not super young, but still in his prime and his peak.
Let me ask you this. I'm going to answer your question with a question.
Sure.
Are you willing to take his former organizational mate, Randy Arozarena, at his particular cost?
I am not an Arozarena guy at his particular cost. What's his ADP? About 30, early 30s?
Yeah, he goes a lot sooner, and I see a lot of similarities between the two players. I'm much more likely to take Garcia at his price than Arozarena at his.
I am also. I think Arozarena brings a batting average floor into play too. He did drop his strikeout rate last year, but I think with him, he doesn't hit the balls hard either. Like, I don't think he's as good a hitter as Adolis is. He's probably less of a strikeout guy a little bit, but I don't know. His batting average scares me, and I think the 20 home runs is kind of his peak. So you've got to get the 30 stolen bases for that to work at the price.
Yeah, I think there's a limiting factor in the ballpark a little bit there.
Yeah.
Although Texas isn't the best place to hit either, but I just find it interesting that Arozarena is now more trusted than Garcia, and they have essentially the same track record. And Garcia has a higher power ceiling.
I definitely a higher power ceiling. I think that. I mean, was Arozarena? He was 32. He got caught stealing 12 times last year. Like, at some point, I worry about that too. If Tampa Bay gives him that green light that he had last year. I mean, he attempted 44 steals last year.
Yeah, and maybe. Because pitchers aren't going to be able to hold him as well, he gets up to 40 stolen bases. And then all of a sudden you're talking 2040, and okay, well, now you got yourself a stew. Now you understand why he goes higher, I guess, because he has the lower power ceiling but a higher stolen base ceiling.
Yeah, I think that's fair too. Right after Adolis, we have a catcher I wanted to ask you about. Adley Rutschman is pick 66 or so. I did draft champions the last 3 weeks is where I get these ADPs. So if I'm a couple numbers off your numbers, that's where they came from.
Sure.
Last year, Rutschman was hit 254, 13 home runs, 4 stolen bases, and 470 major league plate appearances. In the minors in 2021, much higher average, hit 290, but had 23 home runs. You look at his hard contact; it was pretty blah last year. 37% barrel rate, under 8%. Really good plate discipline guy though. Like great K rate, really good walk rate. I mean, a guy that walks 14% of the time as a rookie. Like he was a super impressive rookie, but we're talking fantasy baseball here. And I just don't see it the price. I know he's catcher eligible. I know he's really talented. I know he's a really good hitter. I kind of put him like Wander Franco of catchers. And then I love the player, but I don't love the player for fantasy at the price.
I mean, we're sharing a brain on this.
All right.
I mean, everybody.
I was shocked. Walks. I was shocked how high he is.
It's those walks, man. And
but I mean, it's great for the Orioles, but is it great for us?
He scored 70 runs in 113 games as a catcher. I mean, that does it. The walks help that because he's going to bat in a key part of the order. And the Orioles are kind of a rising tide sort of team. I think they're more of we're going to consolidate our gains from last year type of team instead of rising more. So I probably won't pay this price. But I mean, we have pedigree. We have that. What happens when he hits the next level? Is this the next Buster Posey? And then I don't want to miss the next Buster Posey sort of mentality. So I get it why he's going there. But I tend to think he's more like Wander Franco too.
Yeah, and Buster Posey hit for batting average right away. It was never a huge home run, but his value was always the fact he hit 300.
Mm-hmm.
I think Rutschman is obviously really good, but I think like 265-17 feels about right to me, and there's no way I'm taking that in the 5th round.
Sure.
So a guy who is 10 picks after that, also a young guy who debuted last year. Corbin Carroll is someone that a lot of people love, but people are wary of. Last year was not great after the call-up. He only had 4 home runs and 2 stolen bases. He hit 260 and 150 plate appearances. Obviously a pretty small sample there. He was really good in the minors, over 300 last year, 23 home runs, 31 stolen bases, a huge piece of speed power combo guy in the minors last year. ADP 75. We're talking the 5-6 turn into 15 teamer. A couple rounds later, a 12 teamer. Where are you? Are you a love Corbin Carroll guy? Are you I'm not at the price here? Where do you fall on him? Because I think I'm becoming more and more into him as I get deeper into this.
I'm a love Corbin Carroll guy. Line drive percentage at 25%.
Nice.
Sprint speed is 99th percentile. We all saw the first to third last year. Did a couple times. It was just breathtaking. I know we're betting on the come here. It's the logic part of my brain is probably not going to win this argument. If logic is looking at previous stats, I think the hard hit rate was good enough. It goes with the speed, the projection. James Anderson loves him. That means a lot to me. He got me on Michael Harris last year. He's like Carroll's his number one, and he's going to play unless he just totally craps the bed in spring training. He's going to play. And
do you worry at all with the crowd outfield there in terms of him, or is that more of a Kyle Lewis, Jake McCarthy worry later on? Then Carroll's going to play, right? I
think he's going to play, and I think eventually Alec Thomas will too. I think Kyle Lewis loses out pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Loris Gurriel's there, though. I get it.
And Evan Longoria might DH a little bit. You got some situations there. And it's funny, we talk about walk rates with Rutschman and kind of like, that's great for runs, but how much does it help you in fantasy? For Carroll, I love it because, it helps stolen bases. And he was been a huge walk guy in the minors. I know he wasn't in his 32 games in the majors last year, but, it's 32 games. He was about 15% in the minors last year. I love high OBP guys for someone that steals because every time you walk, and he's so freaking fast. You mentioned 100th percentile in speed score on Baseball Savant. I love a guy that can walk and he steals base. It's Ricky Henderson. He walks so much, but it's a double every time he walks.
Exactly. So I do already have some Corbin Carroll this year in the NFBC 50s. I'll probably go back to the well on that.
Yeah, I'm in on this one. I would take him over. I'd take him over Rutschman for sure. Then it's 10 picks later. So I think he's one of the rookies that I am in on. On the flip side, a guy who debuted last year that I am not in on that has the same price as Corbin Carroll, which I just don't see, is O'Neal Cruz in Pittsburgh. 233 last year, 17 home runs, 10 stolen bases, 361 plate appearances. Big hard hit guy, rate guy. We've seen it, like he makes contact. You're like, oh, that's kind of a line drive to center, and it goes 10 feet over the fence. Like the dude has insane power, but you talk about strikeout rate, 35% last year in the majors, and huge strikeout guy. He was first percentile in K rate in the majors, fourth percentile in whiff rate, like just brutal numbers. Huge max EV guy. He was 100th percentile there. I just don't think I can do it at the price. I think the batting average floor is too much of a scare tactic for me here.
I get that. I spent some time talking with Fred Zinke about him last year, and maybe I caught him like after like a monster day, and I'm like, oh yeah, 5th round, definitely. And then I get push comes to shove. I actually, have to try to decide whether to draft him or somebody else. It's always been somebody else so far. I don't have any O'Neal Cruz just yet. It's early. I don't have that many leagues yet, but I'm not comfortable with the price.
Yeah, I think someone's just going to like him more than I do in every draft. He's just not the type of guy. And everyone's like, I'll get burned on guys like this, and there will be ones that break out. Javier Baez, one of those years that he went off, and I never had him, that sort of thing. But I feel pretty good that avoiding a guy like this is usually a win more often than it's not.
I'm going to take my guy Dansby over him every time. And Dansby goes 10 picks later.
Same-ish range. A few picks later, same position. If you're willing to take Dansby first, it's hard to get Cruz unless somebody jumps Dansby and you do it. But it's just hard to get a guy that you like the other guy more 10 picks later.
And I like Tim Anderson at 23 picks later better too. Maybe not straight up, but maybe I do.
Tim Anderson's really fallen off the ADP platform here.
Yeah, use that to your advantage.
For sure. Another middle infielder who had a huge breakout last year is Andres Jimenez in Cleveland. He was someone that was really, really bad in 2021. Had a lot of hype coming into that season. People were moving him up to like the 8th, 9th round. Stolen base guy. He's really fast, and he was just bad in 2021. Hit 218, no hard contact at all. Everything went up last year. He hit 297, 17 home runs, 20 stolen bases. Hard contact still is not good, but way up from 2021, up 7%. Barrel raise up 3%, still under 6.5%. What the heck do you do with Andres Jimenez now that he's about pick 80 in ADP?
I draft him.
Really? Tell me why. Tell me.
I think he's going to score so many runs. in that top part of the Cleveland lineup. I love the second short eligibility. I love the speed that he brings to the table there. I've gotten him twice now already so far on the NFBC platform. One in the Arizona Fall League Speakers League, the other in the NFBC 50, which is a 12er. I don't know. I just think he solves some problems that you can get, especially stolen base issues that you start with. If you get like Pete Alonso early, later on you can go get Jimenez to address some of your stolen base shortfall.
Yeah, that's a fair point. I do like the second and short eligibility. I'm just I'm not sold how great a hitter is. I think the 17 home runs are not repeating. So I think more you get like 12 to 14. But if he steals 25 and hits 300, that still works out pretty well. He's fast. His sprint speed's 94th percentile. So the speed is legit. It's real. I think he chases a little bit too much to hit 297. I think the pop's not there to hit 17 home runs.
Okay. And that might cause me to revisit for later.
He's fully priced now too. I mean, I think he's earned that price. Don't get me wrong. He was really good last year. He was someone that I missed on. I had none of him last year. And there was our friend Vlad Sedler has been a fan of his for a couple of years. Burned him in 2021, but paid off nicely in 2022. But I think I'm not. I think I'm gonna stay out for this year.
Do you when you miss a guy like this? I mean, is there a general approach that you take with these guys to kind of dig on them a little bit more when you don't have them anywhere?
For sure.
You spend more time on the player?
100%. And even I missed the year before, I'm going back into because I very much want to know, what I missed and should I have missed it? Was it lucky? Did I miss something? Usually it's because I missed something. So I definitely, with someone I missed something, I usually jump back in more heavily than I would with someone I was kind of right on the year before.
Good. My process was right. The player was wrong.
I'm not a process. I usually blame myself more than I should, which is kind of stupid with some of the stuff, but I'm usually like, why did I miss this and what did I get wrong? So
sure.
A couple more guys here before we jump out. I had a bunch more guys on those lists, but we're going a little bit longer, but there's a couple guys I wanted to ask you about. MJ Melendez in Kansas City. ADP is about 102. I realize he's catcher eligible. How do you feel about him? Because last year, the home runs were there. He had 18 home runs and 534 plate appearances, but guy hit 217. Did hit the ball hard, though, 44% hard contact, about 10% barrel. Will be a catcher, will play a lot. Batting average is good in the minors. Are you buying last year was kind of a fluky batting average year? The BABIP was a little bit low. He's going to hit 260, or do you think this 217 is concerning for you?
I think I like him. I think I want him. I like that he's going to play a lot of outfield. More at bats, you're trying to find.
It's huge with catchers.
Yeah, I think he may not get the 260, but I think he does play a good amount. And he does hit better than the 217. I think his approach at the plate is good.
I think he's going to lead off too.
Yeah, it's not a great lineup, but the very top part of that lineup is fun. Yeah. Between Melendez and Pasquantino, Witt, and Sal Perez, there's some fun there. And if he's in front of all those guys, great. He hits well without the shift, is what Anthony is saying. So I want some Melendez. The funny thing is, he's kind of priced though.
Yes,
he's going before Sean Murphy, who I really like a lot. He's going kind of in the same range as William Contreras, maybe a little early. He's going the same range as Alejandro Kirk, who everybody loves. Although maybe not everybody because of the way Kirk finished the second half last year, but.
Most people love Kirk, though. Yeah. It's funny. I looked at the price and I looked at the batting average last year. I'm like, what am I doing here? And then as I looked deeper, I looked at 2021, and he was a really good average guy that year.
Yeah.
Struck out a lot early in his minor league career. Then after the COVID year, we didn't play. He had a really good strikeout rate in 2021. Not in 21%, so good enough. Then it bumped up last year. I think maybe if that drops a little bit, the BABIP kind of goes back where it was. He's leading off. I think you sold me a little bit. And as I looked a little deeper, I was a little more. I was out right away, and then I looked a little deeper, and I'm probably. I think it's about the right price.
Yep.
Not everybody has to be a fade or a target. I think he's about the right price there. Two more guys here before we get out of here. Nathaniel Lowe in Texas had a nice breakout season last year. Hit what did he hit? How many? He hit 27 home runs. Hit 302 and 645 plate appearances. Batting average, power, hard hit rate was good. The barrel rate was about 10%. Dropped his Ks nicely. Dropped his K rate down to about 23%. The thing I noticed with Lowe, and I looked pretty deep at him because I was trying to figure out why the breakout came. His walk rate went down 5% last year, from 12% to 7.5%. But You look at what he did. It was actually a change in his approach. His zone swing rate up 8%. So he's swinging at more pitches in the zone. His first pitch swing rate went from 29% to 41%. Like he was much more aggressive. And I just think he changed his approach and became a guy that I want to make stuff happen rather than he was a big walk guy. And, you like walks, but I like a guy who's aggressive early too. I mean, the BABIP was good last year, so it's probably going to go. He's not going to hit 300 again, but I think he's got a chance to hit 275, 280. I like the fact that he was attacking early. I mean, it really showed in his power numbers and his batting average.
I think you're right. I'm curious to see if teams pitch him differently now that they notice that he's swinging more in the first
you're saying I'm the only one. I'm not the only one that noticed this.
Yeah. Aha.
Teams look at stats.
Teams have proprietary info that we don't even have. Perhaps I don't know.
Yeah. It's a good point. If that adjusts back, like, hey, maybe we need to throw this guy a few more sliders on the first pitch. It's an interesting point.
He might not just bring 260 into play. It could go down to 240. I mean, that's the downside. All that said, I think the price is pretty reasonable. I think I want some of him.
I do too. And we talk about this lineup is not overly long, but it's similar to what you mentioned with the Royals. Like the top half of it is really good. Like if he's hitting, he's hitting fourth behind, or hitting even third behind Semien and Seager, and then Adolis behind him. The back half of this lineup's pretty gross, but he's gonna have guys on base hitting third here.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think another guy that I saw the price, I was like, 105 seems high. And then as I got deeper, I really like the change in approach. And it seems like he's a guy that really did change his approach, which I like to see. Last guy I want to ask you about, we'll finish with a red here just because I like you and I think you're a good dude. Hunter Green's ADP is 110. He is a lot of fun to watch, throws a million pitches over 100 miles an hour. One of those guys that Hunter Green's pitching, I'm going to watch this game. Like I don't flip Reds games on a lot. Sorry, Jeff. But when he's pitching or Lodolo's pitching, like I'm watching this game. 31% strikeout rate last year, 125 innings. Walk rate was 9%. Swing strike rate, big for a starting pitcher at 14.5%. Fastball's 99 miles an hour on average, which shows you how many times he hits 100. Gave some hard contract. He was down there, but you see that with guys who throw hard. Hunter Green's ADP is 110, Jeff. I need you to tell me as a Reds fan, are you in or are you out at this price?
I'm out at this price.
Are you really? Why?
The Reds suck.
The Reds suck, and the ballpark sucks too.
Yeah, the ballpark's it's all bad. He's good, but he's also wildly inconsistent. He could walk 60 guys this year in 140 innings. I don't know how many innings he throws. I think I prefer Lodolo, especially for cost. I think Green could be. I mean,
he was awesome. He was awesome down the stretch.
He was awesome down the stretch.
Four earned runs total his last 6 starts to mind.
Yeah. I think the bullpen is going to blow games for him. The offense is pretty bad.
You kind of made me sad on this one.
I'm kind of sad on this one. I want to root for him. I don't want to say mean things.
To take the next step, are you someone that thinks he needs to develop that third pitch? Because he threw 54% fastballs and 41% sliders last year. He threw 5% changeups. So pretty much a 2-pitch guy 95% of the time. The slider's awesome. 170 batting average against, 38% whiff rate on the slider. Do you think in order to be like that guy at this price and take that next step, he needs that third pitch, or is it good enough that he can go 2-pitch?
I'd probably like to defer to better pitching experts than myself. Like go ask Nick Pollock what he thinks. That said, I mean, I don't know if he's going to get that third pitch or not. I'd like to see him get it. Sometimes he never get it. Homer Bailey never got that third pitch.
I don't want to use that as a comp.
No, I don't either. But Homer Bailey had some really good years in Cincy. He just didn't get he didn't meet the outrageous expectations that he had as like the great hope for the team. But
I think I must have missed the good years because I know I had
some 2 no-hitters.
Did he throw 2 no? I knew he had one. I didn't know. It's funny you say that. He had 2 years over 200 innings, whereas the ERA was under 3.7. So you're right. He had a couple of really good years in there. Yeah,
Homer Bailey's problem is he would get to 1-2, 0-2, and then not finish batters off.
Yeah, that's frustrating.
And that's, I mean, I hate to bring that up as the comp because that's possible, but yeah, he's one of those guys that had a pretty good career and it ended badly. Obviously those last couple of years and since he were really rough, but he had a lot of injuries. That's the other thing. That's why you don't want to throw that shade on him, but on Green. But
you are the Reds fan here. How many innings does Hunter Green throw this year? I mean, let's throw like major injuries out of the way. You're obviously going to skip some start. Well, how many? We talking like 150? What do you? What's your thing?
I'd probably take the under on that. I'd probably go like around 140 or so.
Okay. Because he threw 125 last year. 140, 150 is probably right.
I mean, there is a scenario where he throws 180 and is awesome, and he wins 10 games.
I don't think there's a scenario he throws 180 innings.
I probably don't either.
Okay. There's probably a scenario he throws 155, 160.
So if you think about it, pick 110. That's still like 7th or 8th round.
Yeah, and it's it's either your second starter or your third starter.
And are you comfortable with 150 innings from your second or third starter?
There's probably not that many guys that throw that many innings in this range anymore in modern baseball. So yeah, probably.
Okay.
I am just like in his range at pitcher. We've got Luis Severino. We have Logan Gilbert, Nestor Cortez, Blake Snell. I definitely take George Kirby over him. He's a couple.
Yes, I love George
for
Kirby.
him. I do love George Kirby too. I'd probably take Severino over him. I'd probably take him over Cortez though, but I'd probably take Blake Snell first too.
I take Nestor over 100.
Yeah,
Green.
I'm not getting Hunter Green this year because I would take Logan Webb over him, and he's 10 picks behind him too.
Yeah, I mean, I like it. I'm rooting for Hunter Green, but I can root for him on somebody else's roster too.
I just kind of talked myself out of Hunter Green. Damn.
Yeah, there you go.
More because I do like guys around him, and you got to figure that out too. But he's going in a range where he's got to be really good.
Yeah. By the way, I'm loving the discussion on the pitcher names and what are good pitcher names and what are bad pitcher names and all that. And Josh Outman had to come up, so I know it's
Josh Outman sucked because he was a bad person.
Yeah. There, you said it.
I said it. Sorry, Josh. Now
No,
I can't
not sorry at all.
Because the Dodgers have a James Outman now, so I can't hold that against him, who's a prospect in the outfield. But I had a bad Josh Outman interaction, so I'll just leave it at that. But he would be my vote for worst pitcher name and worst pitcher.
Yeah.
So, Jeff, anybody else you want to talk about? We've gone a little bit long here. There's a lot of names I wanted to run by you, and it's I feel like we hit a lot of them, hit a lot of good closer talk. Anything else on your mind as we get into real good draft season?
Save it. We got a lot more we got a long season to talk, so
we do. We have a lot of draft stuff to talk about. So thanks everybody for listening. If you could again, please rate or review the podcast. It helps us a lot there. We want to thank Fantrax, the most customizable free commissioner service in fantasy sports, for the sponsorship, as well as UnderDog Fantasy, home of the biggest best ball contest in the industry. If you want to follow Jeff on Twitter, he's at Jeff_Erickson. I am at Scott Jenstad. We really appreciate everybody listening. It's been very fun to get back on the airwaves here and do the podcast. I definitely missed doing it as much as it was nice to have a break. I missed talking to Jeff, miss seeing all the comments and seeing all the nice stuff and just talking baseball with you. It's always fun.
Yeah, I know. It's always reinvigorating when we do it.
It is. It makes me. I feel like I took a nice break from draft season. Now I'm ready to get back in every time we talk about it. So
all right, the return of striker.
Look forward to chatting next week. We're back at everybody next Sunday night. Hope everybody has a really good week and take care.